Hi, family community. How are you doing? I know I'm blessed and I hope you are too. Today, I have a treat for you. I was going to say we have a guest, but he's been here twice. Once you've been on the show twice, you are no longer a guest. So, my dear, loving, sweet husband is here with us today. And as I told you before, ooh, it's hot. Is it hot in your neck of the woods? As I told you before, we're going to be highlighting some authors this month from the 15th. And the 15th, I'm going to highlight more so my group on Facebook. But I'm going to start from now highlighting some of the other authors that I still correspond with and read their books and so forth. So one of them being my dear husband, he's going to share a little bit about what his book is and where we could find his book, okay? So take notes because this is a book to grab. So Dr. Echols, have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, my beautiful wife. So I know that I'm not Caribbean. Obviously, I'm not a woman, which is my wife's focus for authors and writing. However, I do have a book that discusses women, discusses men, discussing people from the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the African diaspora. So the name of my book is African Diasporan Relationships. And pretty much what this book is about is it's an exploration of what it's like to be a black person that's married to another black person from a different culture and a different country. So that typical dynamic is going to look like an African American married to someone from the Caribbean, which happens to be the case with myself and my wife. I being a black American man married to a woman from the Caribbean. It also could be African American married to African, married to Afro-Latino, or someone from Europe of African descent. It can, of course, be any variation of those particular mixes. It could be Caribbean married to African. It could be Afro-Latino married to someone from Europe of African descent. So that, in a nutshell, is what the book is about. It's an exploration of these beautiful relationships, which I have found do not get the focus and attention I believe they deserve. So with my book, I wanted to both ask and answer, what is it like to be a black person that's married to another black person from a different culture? So I'll look at that from a number of ways. One is I'll tell my own personal story, being a black American man that for the past 25 years has dated African women, Caribbean women, ultimately culminating in the marriage to my wife and myself. I also look at the issue from an academic standpoint. So I explain what the African diaspora is. I explain what African diasporan relationships are. I look at the prevalence of these relationships because I do believe they are more common than what many people may think. I look at where to find black people from different cultures if you're interested in it. I discuss what to expect in these relationships. I talk about how to be successful. I talk about the advantages of these relationships, the challenges of the relationships. I talk about pitfalls to avoid. I discuss the fears of these relationships, like how do I know I'm not being scammed, which I know is a concern for many when you're talking about dating and marrying into another culture. And finally, I interview couples that are in these relationships and they share their own experiences.
I think my favorite is the elephant in the room. He's going to explain why.
Okay, so I'll backtrack then. So again, I discuss the fears of these relationships. So the elephant in the room. I devoted a entire chapter to how do you know you're not being scammed. So I know that this is probably the primary concern about these relationships, and the few times that people do actually talk about dating and marrying outside of your culture, that's typically what comes up. So I can't possibly talk about intercultural relationships, African diasporan relationships, and not address that particular concern. So I devoted a chapter to it. I talked about, you know, um, how you can minimize the risk. I don't want to say avoid it because anything can happen. That's just the reality of relationships. But I talk about how to minimize your risk. And it's really a common sense advice, talking to your potential partner, learning about their culture, learning about their particular motivations. Of course, your approach is going to differ depending on when, where, and how you meet your partner. If you are in the same country, meeting a partner, for instance, if you are in the U.S. and you meet a foreign-born partner at school or at work, you're probably going to have a different approach than if you meet somebody traveling abroad. So if you go to the Jamaica, for instance, and you meet someone from Jamaica, or you go to Africa and you meet someone from Africa, you know, you're going to ask some different questions and have a different approach than, you know, the first scenario that you're meeting someone in the U.S. But either way, you ask questions, you find out about their circumstances, you learn about their culture, you watch and observe. You know, you never want to meet somebody and marry them the next day. You know, that's not uh, wise to do. So you want to take your time as well. You could do background checks. I'll discuss that as well. Even know a gentleman that does background checks in Ghana, Yazid Muhammad, that he does background checks. So I'll just give some practical advice in that chapter, and ultimately I conclude that is it a risk that you may be scammed? That yeah, it is. It is a risk, but I also explain that risks are inherent in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So you always take a risk when you enter a relationship with somebody. You take the risk that the person wants you for you, not just wants to sleep with you, that they don't want you for your money, that their feelings towards you are genuine. So you take a risk whenever you enter a relationship. It's inherent. You know, there are no rewards without risk when you're talking about love and life. So there are risks, but that is part of any type of relationship. I personally, if you have common sense approaches, if you take your time, if you had the conversations you need to have, I wouldn't shy away from these types of relationships. Obviously, I recommend them, and you can find love. Myself and my wife did, and so have many others who are in these relationships.
Can you believe we found love bungee jumping?
If you do believe it, you shouldn't, because that's the last thing I would do, and I know my wife would as well.
Nope. But guess what? We're going to tell you our story pretty soon, so we're not going to give it out the bag yet, okay? And one last thing we want you to mention, my Dr. Mark Echols, is where you can find this lovely book, African Diasporan Relationships.
Okay, so the book can be found on Amazon. It has recently been updated. It's been out for actually 2 years. It's recently been updated. I mentioned my reviews. It's the bulk of the book is those interviews because while I tell my own story, ultimately I did not want this to just be about me and my wife. I wanted others to share their experiences. And I want, as I think most authors want, others to see themselves in the discussion.
Definitely.
So there are additional interviews, there's more information, there's more resources. So that has recently been updated. So you can find it on Amazon. It's available in hardcover, paperback, and ebook. So African Diasporan Relationships. Check it out on Amazon. Dr. Mark Echols. Appreciate your support and hope to see you and talk to you soon.
Definitely grab your copy today. You heard it. Amazon.com. So please don't forget to subscribe, like, and definitely share your comments in the comment area. Tell us what you think. Thank you so much, honey, for sharing your book today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care of you guys.